Oh, hey man, what are you doing? Oh, hey man, how's it going? No, I'm just playing around with my radio. So you're tracking this AT&T thing at all? It's kind of weird, right? What's going on? So AT&T, Verizon, a couple of others are claiming like a massive outage, pretty much across the country. Are you seeing this? You got signal? What's going on? No idea. I've just been playing around on 20 meters pretty much all day. There's a big opening. We've been making contacts outside of the U.S. It's been awesome. But I don't know, depending entirely on your communications being given to you by a large corporation, I don't know, what do we expect? It's going to work all the time, every time? I don't know, is that realistic? Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't really have another option right now other than my phone. Unless I go home and, I guess, use my computer for the internet. Yeah, in times like these, I always like to pull up just one of the broadcast stations, AM or FM. I'll do that real fast here and see if there's, like, any bulletins that we should be worried about. Most likely it's nothing, but, it takes seconds to check. And that was just there. So you're 91. Seems like it's okay. They're, like, doing traffic reports, so, yeah. So, yeah, I guess it's just an outage. What is that? What is that noise? Oh, that? That's my Meshtastic. My wife is actually texting me. It's kind of cool. It tethers from my little device here. It looks like a phone, but it's not. It actually tethers to my tablet. And yeah, she wrote me a message. Going grocery shopping. I just want to tell you how protected I feel of all the time and effort you've put into creating a layered communications plan for our family. It's pretty nice. So that's just between like two devices? Your wife has one and you have the other? Yeah, so actually you need to have something like local mesh device. This is called Meshtastic. It's using a technology called LoRa, long range. I have another one of these that's on the roof, on my little mast that I have on the roof that has a solar panel, and that extends my range out. And once I get my wife one of the nodes up on the roof at her work, we should be able to go across the city without much problem. It's, not that big of a city, but still, it's pretty good to be able to be in communication when she's at work here in the city and I'm here at home with the kids. And we have one of these in our car, and they all kind of just talk to each other, and we can text back and forth. It's nice to have. Well, I guess I'll go back and watch some TV until AT&T comes back online so I can doom scroll on Instagram Reels. What are you doing now? What is this? Oh, this? Well, you might not believe me, but I'm downloading my emails off of my radio or connecting to another radio and getting my emails that way. The internet's still working all over the place. I just can't use my phone right now to get it, but, this works just fine. This is called WinLink. By the way, dude, did you get that license yet? Work on your technician? I heard you were doing that. What's going on? Yeah, no, I'm totally studying for it right now. AT&T reveals likely cause of outage that affected customers nationwide. AT&T said the cause of its national service outage was the execution of an incorrect process. So recording on Thursday, February 22nd, I got a ton of messages while I'm trying to build my kids' Pinewood Derby car and change up some of the shack, so that's why all this stuff is out, because I'm reorganizing everything. But, the world doesn't wait, and communications is a vital part of our lives. At the peak of this AT&T outage, 73,000 customers has reported that they had no connection or degraded connection to the network. I have AT&T. I was never affected. I'm in Southern California. Regardless, my internet, social medias exploded with people talking about amateur radio and reposting some of my things that I had done in the past. And for that, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody. Really do appreciate that. But it started the ball rolling in my head of how resilient are you if there is a communications breakdown? Remember that we pay companies like AT&T money to subsidize our communication. Sure, a lot of amateur radio operators, GMRS operators, CB operators, they have their own capability to go point to point. But that fast, high-speed data, the internet that we like in our pocket, is generally facilitated by phone companies that we pay to allow us to do whatever it is we want to do. The downside of that is you could have an execution of an incorrect process, a very business way of saying we had an oopsie, and it could take out all of this. So that monthly payment becomes worthless. And it not just only takes out my phone here as an AT&T customer, it also takes out every other carrier that uses the AT&T lines to bring their service to their customers. So some people from T-Mobile were affected. FirstNet, first responders, I believe, also had some issues because they piggyback at a higher priority than regular customers on those wireless networks. And to be fair, we do take this for granted because even at $100 a month or whatever you could be paying for your phone and data service, it's a really amazing tool. But the capabilities and adding to those capabilities and migrating them to larger and larger networks can yield a situation where we have these little oopsies and all of a sudden we just strand people without communication. So here today on the Ham Radio Crash Course, I'm going to talk briefly about what I would recommend you do if something like this happens again, which, spoiler alert, it's going to happen again. And it could also come with things like power outages and possibly even natural disasters. So the first thing is, if you're new to the channel, go to the playlist, Are You New to Ham Radio? Start here. And there's no prescribed order. Just scroll through it and find something that's interesting to you. Maybe it's Meshtastic. Maybe it's the Ham Radio licensing for technician, or a myriad of other videos that I've made over the years. Thousands now, pretty much. So thanks for checking that out. So subscribe would be nice too. But okay, the first things first is, if you find yourself, you wake up in the morning glassy-eyed and you don't know what the heck's going on, your phone's dead, and maybe you're out of power, the first thing you should probably do is to make sure there wasn't some kind of disaster. That, for me, usually means I'm going to hop onto an AM or FM broadcast radio station and scroll around, check a few out. That's the nice thing about these broadcast stations, is it's really easy to just kind of tune around or just scan until you find the next one. A couple of radios I like for that. The first one is this CountyCom GP7 single sideband. This does AM broadcast, FM broadcast, and will also pick up shortwave on single sideband, which is really nice because you can listen to amateur radio stations on this as well. I did a review on this. The link will be in the description. But with this radio, if you're worried about some kind of disaster or something else bad happening, you can turn this on, check what's happening. There could be an emergency broadcast, which would then kind of give you some more information. But if there isn't, and there's just a guy talking about whatever, or the morning zoo crew going off about who knows what, then you can largely say, okay, we're not having a big disaster. Maybe this is just a localized comms outage, and you could probably use your computer at that point to find out what the heck is going on. If you lost the internet too, even at your home, well, now we've got a much bigger problem. So we'll continue down our road talking about radio communications that you can do on your own to bring your own communications back online. So to give me a little structure and help rein me in a little bit, we're going to talk about three particular modes of communication: voice communication, email communication, and then data or kind of ancillary communication or specialized communications that you probably would want to have if the internet and your cell phones went away. The first is probably the easiest, and that's voice. If you're completely new to all this communication stuff and you just want an ability to talk, you're likely going to gravitate towards things like the family radio service and the general mobile radio service, FRS and GMRS. They basically operate in the same frequency space, which is UHF frequencies, 400 megahertz and higher. And I'm holding one of them in my hands right now. This is the Wouxun KG935G. This is probably the one that I would point a lot of people to if they're just starting out. It's more expensive, but it's probably one of the better handhelds that you can buy. Now, realistically, let me just get this out of the way first and foremost. A handheld is communication pretty much over like 1 mile to 3 miles, radio to radio. If you want to plus that up, then you're going to have to get what they call a base station or a mobile radio that takes this from 5 watts GMRS up to 50 watts. Also, there's usually an external antenna that goes on your car or on your roof. That will really increase your range, and you'll be able to communicate 20 miles, 30 miles, maybe even more with the help of other radio systems called repeaters. A lot of you have heard these terms before, and that's good. The word is getting out. The communications is cool again. The good thing about GMRS is you pay $35 and you get 10 years out of that license, and it covers you, your family, and then some of your extended family, like your father, your mother, that kind of thing. These are handy when you're going mobile, if you're going off-roading, if you're doing a road trip, whatever, going to a theme park. Some cases, like Disneyland, won't let you walk in with one of these. At least ask me how I know. Trust me, I have a video on it. Now, while these are good for just simple voice communication, that's about where GMRS ends. It's just there to kind of be that communication to bridge the gap between phones, the internet, etc., particularly when you are off-grid, either because you're out in the middle of nowhere because literally the internet is gone. Now, amateur radio is a similar beast, but we have access to more frequencies. So UHF is covered here, similar frequencies to that of GMRS, but this will also do 2 meters, so about 140-ish megahertz, and 1.25 meters, which is roughly 220 megahertz, around that space. What does that all mean? Well, it's just like changing to a different golf club. In some cases, you're going to hit the ball a little bit further with one band than you can with the other. And then there's also the aspect of congestion. When you have a frequency set like GMRS in an emergency, you may find that there's just too many people talking on this thing, and you would yearn for frequency access that the amateur radio service gives you. Downside of amateur radio is you got to get yourself a license, and there's actually a test behind it. It's 35 questions. It's not that difficult. I do promise you that. And I have a playlist down in the description that'll walk you through the whole training of it. And you can take practice exams at hamstudy.org to help you get started. Trust me, if you're even slightly technically minded, the technician license is a slam dunk for all of you. I highly encourage you try. Now, while I'm holding in my hand a $750 handheld, that's not where I recommend most people start, particularly if you're just interested in kind of this calms down emergency kind of communication type thing. There are a myriad of cheaper Chinese radios that are now available on the market. Most of them you can buy on Amazon. I will link to a couple of them, and I'll also include some of the videos that I've done talking about them, just so you have a little bit more context if you're interested. Now, off to my shoulder here, this little beautiful box, that is a high-frequency radio. High-frequency radios require those big antennas, like the really large television antennas you might see at 50, 100 feet. When you're driving down the freeway, you're like, man, I bet he gets all the channels. No, what they're doing is amateur radio on high frequency, which allows you to bend the RF off the atmosphere. We call that refraction. Think of like a prism, if you've ever seen like the light pass through a prism and it bends. It's the same kind of concept with radio frequencies. When we shoot that power out, it will go super long distances as it bends like a triangle off the atmosphere, going from one side of the globe, your transmission spot, bounce, and then come down. That's beyond line of sight communication. That's only facilitated by the randomness of our atmosphere. And while you can pay a lot of money for an expensive radio to get you more consistent communication, that usually means that you're going to have to put up some serious antennas to make that happen. Now, fear not, there are a number of inexpensive HF radios, but the downside is that you are going to spend more. You're going to have to take up more real estate for the antenna. Even a simple wire antenna could be 15 feet, 40 feet, and on up, depending on what frequencies it operates on. And you need to upgrade to the next level of amateur radio, which is called the general license. The general license gives you access to HF frequencies and then everything that you got before with technicians, so you're just kind of growing your capabilities as a radio operator. Now, something that makes amateur radio unique against services like GMRS is that with amateur radios, even my handhelds, my HF radio over here, we can send data through it, either by connecting a phone or a computer. We can send computer noises into the radio, have it modulated out as RF, and then shoot that into the atmosphere. That allows us to do things like email. WinLink is the name of one such application that allows you to email point to point, so to radio stations. So if there was an outage in your local area, you could punch that RF out, hit a station 1,000 miles away, basically, and then have them use their internet to feed your email back to you. Or you could just do a simple point-to-point email to your friend if you were so inclined. Along with email, slightly different though, is what we call asymmetric communication or asymmetric messages, where we can use, again, bring back that computer and radio setup. I could send a message to my friend and say, hey, store this in your inbox, almost like I was sending him a text message to his computer. We're going to go directed to K8MRD, and I'm going to go to
message to, call sign, and then the message. And it's please store this message at your station for later retrieval by that call sign. So let's click that. You can see, okay, the first one is we got to enter their call sign, which is N for OG. And I'm going to say APRS is best mode. And then fire that off. So now it's going to go via my station to Mike's station. And then Alec, at his convenience, so long as Mike is up and running. Again, there's a lot of moving parts here. You all got to be on the air. Then Alec, can query Mike for that message at a later date. And I'll show you how to do that as well, without him having to actually be there, which is really nice. When you're in a disaster situation, you can be firing messages out and replying to messages that then people can reply to later. We have a video on this on the channel. It uses an application called JS8 Call, and I'll also post a link in the description to a video that will explain more about connecting a computer to your radio and what you can do with it. Now, a communications platform that has really been taking the internet by storm is Meshtastic. The good news here is you don't have to have a license, and even better news is that oftentimes you can set these up to be encrypted, up to 256-bit AES encryption. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, Josh, you mentioned earlier that this only gets a mile or two. What's the advantages of all these little boxes? Well, I'm glad you asked. So these are mesh devices, meaning that when they are within the same range of each other, they create a wireless mesh network. And don't get too excited. This is not the internet. This is not a phone. You can't do voice. This is for text messaging, this is the last little corner of our triangle we've been building here. So if I put something like this on my roof with a solar panel that does come with this kind of acts like a repeater. And if a friend of mine is in line of sight with these two radios, we can send messages back and forth to each other. So hypothetically, let's say I have this on the roof. This is in my home connected to my phone. Yes, this is a phone application, Meshtastic. You can get it for iOS or Android, or you can also run directly off of a web interface over Wi-Fi to your device on its local network. Now, with this guy, I can send a text message. It gets picked up by my boy on the roof here and then goes out to my buddy who has another device, maybe in his hand, on the road when he's driving, or maybe he has another box on his roof, and then he gets the messages that way. You'd be surprised that line of sight actually can travel very far if it's unobstructed. So no trees in the way, no buildings, and if you've got the ability to just take a mast, like a push-up pole or a telescoping flagpole type of situation, you can get a little box like this pretty high in the air and give you really good access to be able to flesh out a mesh network. So this box here is another Meshtastic node. This one is for my wife. She carries this in the vehicle usually, and if she gets into trouble, she could kind of stop, put this on the roof, or use an attached antenna to the vehicle to be able to connect to this guy and then Bluetooth to it to send text messaging. It's a really, really handy little network device. Doesn't give you much more than text messaging, but to be honest with you, if you have nothing, this could be really, really useful. Now, what's really cool about Meshtastic and devices that are a little bit bigger like this is they can also have GPS capability, which means when the device is all meshed together, the GPS will squawk and then they can all communicate their location. Again, you can do this encrypted, so don't worry about it. That way you can see where your loved ones are, where they're roaming around in an emergency, or if you're just calms down, it gives you a lot of peace of mind as to where they are at. And not to sound like a broken record, of course, I will post links in the video description to go to Meshtastic videos that I've made and talk about some of the other details about Meshtastic. Now, of course, we got to hit this as well. My favorite mode in amateur radio is something called APRS, Automatic Packet Reporting System. With APRS, you get the same capability as Meshtastic, whereas this is likely going to be locked to the 915 megahertz space. With APRS, you can attach this to almost any radio, this little box here, and you can get the capabilities of whichever band you're operating on and be able to do APRS there. One of the advantages of APRS is you can generally use higher power radios with this little device to be able to communicate to your phone and send messages to different hams, as well as beacon your location. Now, if the internet's not down, you also add more features like sending a text message from your radio to what's called a digipeater, like a repeater on a mountaintop kind of thing, which would connect to the internet. You can send a text message to pretty much anyone. You can also send emails, or you can get the number of emails that are waiting for you in your inbox by squawking out a simple message. APRS is a fantastic mode of operation, highly recommended if you are a technician and looking for a little bit more than just talking to other people on the radio. I'll link you in the description to a couple of videos that talk about APRS in greater detail. Now, I don't want to bore you any longer. If you are new to my channel and you haven't seen any of this stuff before, I have a lot of videos that go into much greater detail in how to get started with a lot of this stuff. So again, if you haven't already, click subscribe and click that bell so you'll know when I go live or when I post my next video. Now, my final thoughts here are humans crave convenience, right? We like to subcontract out, meaning we pay someone to do a service for us or provide a service to us that makes our lives easier. Cell phones are wonderful. The internet is amazing, and we absolutely love that technology and being able to use it in really fun ways. The problem is that most of us don't know how any of that stuff works. We don't know what's in our cell phone. We don't know what's running in the applications that we use. We don't know how that internet even comes to us. We don't know how cell phones work. Most people that you ask about cell phones, they think it's literally calling the phone of a buddy, like if you're in the same room that they're just talking to each other. In some cases they do, but over the phone, absolutely not, and definitely not over the internet. It's just one of many misconceptions and misunderstandings that people have when it comes to just everyday communication. And that's what makes it kind of imperative that you yourself learn more about it, at least so that you have a better understanding of it. Now, myself personally, I'm a software and systems engineer, which you might think, oh boy, here's a super tech nerd. I've been doing it for 20 years. We're hitting that in 2024, which is absolutely insane. But it wasn't actually until I got started in amateur radio that I really started to understand more about communication. And it's actually really helped out my career, being able to talk to people that are outside of my technical space, because I understand about antennas and how information can be exchanged, how antennas function, and how radios work. This is something that if you're thinking about a hobby or something to pick up for not just your personal preparedness for communications, it's a wonderful hobby in the sense that you can learn a lot while doing it and have an absolute blast in building your own equipment, learning how to program it, and then just using it to communicate with others when you're out in the field or at home. So I very much appreciate you taking the time to watch this video if you made it all the way through. I will leave you with the sign-off that we give from Hams to Hams 73, which is another way of saying best wishes to you, and boy howdy, I hope that our cell phones don't go down again. But if they do, maybe what I said in this video will help you out a bit. Let me know in the comments. I'd appreciate it. See ya.